That is so important. That's one of our true stories that was destroyed and a false story put in its place. We are all divine. We are that cosmic consciousness, and we are immortal. It also, not only was it maintained underground, but it was in our psyche. It was already there. That's who we are. Jesus taught a different tradition than what we received from the church, from the Roman church. And of course, that was the mystical path of going inward. They visited that place and every place and made it clear, you get rid of any text that doesn't have the official narrative or we'll destroy them. We have lost so much and created such darkness that sees us as flawed. The Deuteronomist told us we're flawed, we're not worthy of the garden of life. We can't heal. It's always first in ourselves. In what way am I complicit with that darkness?
You think you are free? Think again and reflect deeper. How can you be free if you've bought into the same stories that billions around the globe have internalized? When you have accepted the lies and fabrications of the authorities as the absolute truth? If you are following the same rules as everyone else and living in the shared delusion, then you are just another sheep in a giant, clueless herd, going where the masses are going, doing what the people in power tell you. We have all heard of being stuck in a matrix, a simulation that keeps us confined to our mental barriers, but not many of us pay attention to it or dismiss it as science fiction. But what if you discovered that our 3D reality is a carefully designed system, one that keeps us locked in place, obedient, docile, and distracted from the truth? Perhaps the world we perceive in 3 dimensions, made up of our everyday experiences and routines, was deliberately engineered to keep us confined to a system that keeps us focused on surface-level concerns like work, entertainment, and social expectations. This is all by design and was planned with just one aim: to devoid us of our own power and imprison us on a psychological level. And unfortunately now, most of us have become so deeply immersed in this web of distractions that the very idea of questioning reality feels absurd or even dangerous. Yet sometimes you see it, don't you? That things somehow don't add up as they want us to believe. The déjà vu, the spiritual moments of profound internal clarity, the glitches in timelines, and other times when the material and the sensory just do not satisfy you, your soul craves a deeper meaning of life, a purpose perhaps. These are the very moments when you begin to question your existence and the nature of the world around you. Despite their carefully curated plans and systems, you sometimes get a glimpse of the truth because your soul was and will always be aware of those truths. You have forgotten them temporarily because you became too consumed by the 3D nature of this sensory world. The soul exists beyond the constructs of time, space, and illusion, holding knowledge and awareness that transcend the confines of this superficially designed reality. But from a tender age, our impressionable minds are programmed to forfeit the idea of having a soul and are taught to believe in the evidence of our senses or what the mainstream media or science tells us. That is the truth, they say, but is it really? Let's take a simple example. We all know gravity as one of the fundamental laws of our universe. Through scientific research and analysis, we have come to realize that there exists a force so powerful that it attracts a body towards the center of the Earth, or any physical body embodying mass. People once believed the Earth was the center of the universe and that the sun and stars revolved around us. It wasn't until Copernicus and Galileo challenged these ideas that we began to see the universe in a radically different way. But even their path wasn't a smooth sailing, and Galileo had to pay a heavy price for bringing this idea to common knowledge. We will come back to that in just a few minutes. So we only came to disentangle this profound law around 300 years ago. But what happened before that? Just because we had no concept of gravity, does it mean that a person jumping from a tall building wouldn't have fallen to his death before the scientific discovery of gravity? gravity was very much present and controlling the intricate mechanisms of our universe, but because we didn't know about it or hadn't discovered it yet, so we assumed that such a thing or law simply didn't exist. In essence, a fundamental force that was always there, shaping our reality, had gone unnoticed simply because we didn't have the knowledge to detect it. Now, imagine this is just one example. How many more secrets are there in the universe which we are still unaware of? How many mysteries of the universe remain undiscovered simply because our current understanding, our mental paradigms, and our perceptions are limited? Those universal laws affect our lives, but we remain ignorant of them because we have bought into what the authorities and the scientific community tell us. And who really benefits from our ignorance? They are the people who have designed this sophisticated system of control and censorship. These people are aware of what the general public never gets access to. Also, they are cognizant of the fact that once people begin awakening to their power and the truth of human existence, the system will collapse. So, their power, control, and even their money all depend on one critical factor: staying asleep. But there has always existed a rare breed of humans in every society. The spiritual gurus and ascended masters who had attained enlightenment through their search for true knowledge. As these geniuses discovered what had been kept from us, they wanted to share these lessons with the ordinary man so that every individual could benefit from their findings and retreat inwards. Buddha, Jesus, the yogis of Tibet and the Himalayas were all revered teachers. They only wanted to enlighten the population with their mystic findings. There was never an intention of control or manipulation. But while Jesus wanted to give us the message of self-empowerment all along, the people who came after him and were in charge of handling the sacred texts did not share the same zest for serving humanity. They wanted to use these texts to subject humanity to control and restriction and eventually push them to states of learned victimhood. So they changed the official narrative of the sacred scriptures, such as the New Testament. Instead of it being solely a text encouraging self-exploration and going inwards to find answers, it was reduced to a manual to please and entertain an external God. The reason for keeping the true teachings of Jesus a secret was, in fact, an attempt at preventing us from ever knowing about the magnificent human consciousness and our potential as creators of our reality. Most of us are sick and tired of life because we have been hurled into a system of endless work like maniacs. We are all searching for light, but it has been kept from us by the media, the church, and the powerful lot. They distract us with fear, division, and a distorted version of reality that prevents us from realizing our creative power. So, how about we uncover some of those ancient mysteries and secrets in today's video to realize these fundamental truths about our power as the gods of our lives? Let's unravel this enigma by delving into the teachings of Betty Kovács. She is a genius mind and trailblazer in the field of consciousness studies and spiritual awakening. In her carefully researched talks and works, she emphasizes the importance of rediscovering the sacred knowledge of our ancestors. It is the profound wisdom that acknowledges the interconnectedness of all life and the limitless creative potential of human consciousness. Let's explore valuable insights that could ignite a powerful shift in your perspective. These nuggets of wisdom shared by Betty will help you break free from old limitations and become one with your innate power as the creator of your own destiny. So, as Betty delved deeper into the search for truth, she came across many ancient traditions and religious doctrines. Following this path, she came to know that so many truths had been kept from us deliberately when they were clearly stated in the ancient scriptures and are still practiced in many spiritual communities around the world. She also discovered that the story about Jesus dying for our sins was a total fabrication of the spiritual lessons. The influential people in the church carved out a story to make us feel guilty about our actions that do not necessarily conform to the traditional religious view. This has all been a part of their effort to control the masses. This version of events was not by chance. Instead, everything and every fact was strategically manipulated to instill feelings of guilt, shame, and fear within us. This guilt trip is central to the concept of original sin and the belief that all humans are born with an inherent need for salvation. If you look closely, you would find that these emotions like shame and guilt are among the lowest on the vibrational scale, and hence the most potent tool for making people feel helpless and doomed. When we are on the upper end of the vibrational scale and relishing in emotions like love, joy, and enlightenment, we are no longer vulnerable to outside influences. These positive emotions are in fact so powerful that they can balance our energy and heal our bodies while making us feel incredibly powerful in our existence. However, a self-empowered individual is not good for the system of competition, greed, and fear created by the chaos-hungry orchestrators. The very reason they want you to feel low is so you may put your faith in something outside of you, and so that your fear can be monetized in some way or form.
Because the church did not want us to experience that vastness within ourselves, because we wouldn't need the church in the way that they wanted us to need it. They said God's outside of us. This mystic knows everything is within us.
As she says, the church wanted us to follow it, to be afraid of it, and to come to them for help and salvation. This is the only reason they made the population believe in a God outside of ourselves, so that it could be feared as a separate entity, very demanding of total obedience and submission. So if someone was not in line with God's orders, the person had to be punished in order to keep the society moral and God-fearing. And no one would even question the punishment or penalty, because the church conditioned us to believe that it came from God, the sole creator and the master. In this way, the church positioned itself as the sole authority. They became the only means of access to this higher power, ensuring that people would submit unquestioningly to the control. Similarly, Jesus was turned into another God for us to fear and follow. As Betty discovered the forgotten texts in the Nag Hammadi library, she came to the conclusion that Jesus didn't come into the world as a savior of the mortal race. Instead, he served as spiritual inspiration, a guide who wanted to encourage us to follow our path and seek our own truth. His message was not about blind devotion, but about empowerment, urging us to recognize the sacredness within ourselves and to cultivate a direct relationship with the divine. Jesus had no interest in making us all into his worshippers. He never wanted to be praised, celebrated, or feared. That would have been a distraction from his original message of finding God within.
In the Nag Hammadi text says, I did not come to save you. I did not die for you. I came to remind you of who you are.
So he came to remind us of our own truth and our power to achieve Christ consciousness. The Christ consciousness represents an elevated way of being, one that embodies the qualities of Christ: unconditional love, selflessness, humility, and a deep connection to God and humanity. In many spiritual traditions, Jesus has been referred to as a higher frequency of energy that aligns the mind and heart with divine will, moving beyond ego, fear, and the limitations of the material world. The truth is that we are all infinite beings of light and love. However, social conditioning and subconscious programming lead us to believe that we are in need of outside help. Whether it's external validation, material possessions, or even someone else's guidance, we're taught to look outward for answers, but we wouldn't need anything outside ourselves if we learn to interact with the spark of the divine within us, our energy.
Being comes always from non-being. These are the polar opposites, but nothingness is the birth. It's what gives birth to being.
Long before this world was populated, and when nothing existed, there was a vast emptiness occupying everything. The observable universe as we know it today is born out of that void. Scientists call this moment the Big Bang, an event that marked the sudden emergence of space, time, and matter. The emptiness gave rise to everything: the grand mountains with their towering peaks and ancient stones, the expansive deserts with their endless stretches of sand, the trees, the birds, even the celestial bodies, the stars, planets, and galaxies came into existence from this primordial emptiness. So how could so many things emerge out of emptiness? They did so because while we perceive the immaterial realm as void, it is, in fact, filled with energy, the very fabric of the cosmos. Energy is at the base of everything in this universe. Even an atom is 99.9% energy. That is what we call the building block of matter. It is supposed to be the tiniest part of the matter, yet it is also energy. Doesn't that say that this universe, though it appears to be material, is in fact nothing but different manifestations of the same energy? This means that the distinctions we see between the physical, the spiritual, and the energetic realms are merely different perspectives of the same reality. All are arising from the void, the emptiness, the womb of creation. In spiritual and metaphysical traditions, particularly in Eastern philosophies like Mahayana Buddhism, the concept of emptiness or sunyata suggests that everything is impermanent, always changing and dependent on conditions. Hence, when we embody sunyata, we in fact embrace the ever-changing state of the universe because it all exists through transitory states. Only the void, the source energy, is permanent. Everything else is fleeting. According to Buddha, sunyata was a way to relieve suffering because all suffering arises from desire, expectations, and attachments. But when we sit in silence and reflect on the gaping emptiness behind all physicality, suddenly the mind becomes capable of seeing the big picture. In this state of consciousness, we recognize that life's true joy does not lie in grasping or controlling, but in accepting and flowing with the essence of existence. Many other ancient traditions have talked about a primordial void, a sacred nothingness from which all things arise and to which all things return. Like in Taoism, the primordial void is described as wu-qi, a state of infinite potential and stillness that precedes the dynamic balance of yin and yang. Wu-qi manifests tai chi, the universe in which we journey, and since it is energy that makes the fabric of our existence, to know our true selves and to liberate ourselves from the matrix, we have to learn to understand and influence energy. This is the fundamental secret that has been knowingly suppressed from us. We have been compelled to rely on our senses and remain occupied with the fantasies of the material world when an infinitely greater dimension exists in the immaterial. The immaterial dimension is not confined to what we can touch or measure, yet it is more real than the physical world we obsess over. We were all energy before we poured ourselves into these bodies to experience life on planet Earth. Before coming into this costume, we were one with the divine and knew who we were at our core. But after coming here, we got trapped in the illusion of the 3D. This is the relentless pursuit of material possessions and achievements, a blinding rat race that most of us have become a part of unconsciously. We chase after material comforts in search of ultimate peace and happiness. However, mystics and spiritual masters like Jesus knew that every soul comes with one purpose: to become aware of its core and attain enlightenment, and eventually to become one with the light it came from. The Hindu and Buddhist masters teach the concept of samadhi, the art of merging with the divine. As we come into this world and assume roles in our physical bodies, our conscious mind becomes occupied with sensory information, but deep down, every soul knows where it came from and yearns for a reunion with the whole, God. This divine process is called samadhi. In the classical teachings of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, samadhi is one of the 8 limbs of yoga, known as Ashtanga Yoga. It is the final stage of meditation, following years of ethical practice, physical discipline, and mental concentration. While samadhi is still common knowledge among the spiritual masters of the East, the West was robbed of this ancient knowledge, as the authorities destroyed the scriptures containing these mystical themes.
They knew how to achieve samadhi. They were like the Easterners, and yet they were destroyed. They tried to influence Plato, but Plato didn't go that direction with them, and it became more rational for the West.
In many spiritual traditions, death is seen as a moment of ultimate freedom, where the soul merges with the infinite, entering a state of pure consciousness, bliss, and oneness. So, we all achieve samadhi when we leave this realm through death. The real mastery, however, is achieving that state while being confined to a physical body. But achieving samadhi in the physical body requires extraordinary discipline, practice, and deep inner transformation. It requires breaking free from the grip of desires, attachments, and the limitations of sensory perception, which typically keep us bound to the material world. When a seeker manages to reach these elevated states of consciousness, they begin looking at the world from a different perspective. Their actions and decisions are, hence, no longer driven by selfish desires or fears, but by a deep understanding of the interconnectedness of all things. So now you understand why such an important concept was omitted from the standardized narrative of the scriptures?
And I found out later from my studies, of course, that science was limited from the beginning by the church to only study matter. So it really wasn't the scientist's fault that we received such a dreadful, limited worldview. In my book, I point out that this knowledge has always been underground, because we started out from the cave cultures and the megalithic and the Egyptian and so on. We actually had a deep and profound spiritual tradition in the West, but it was absolutely censored by the Deuteronomist and the Roman Church.
The Church, particularly the Roman Catholic Church, held immense power during the Middle Ages, not only in religious matters, but also in intellectual and cultural spheres. Its interference was, therefore, not limited to banning certain ideas and unstandardized texts in the scriptures, but it also meddled in scientific research. Over time, the Church became so involved in its regulations of science that it prohibited any scientific research that was not aligned with the Christian doctrine. While the study of the heavens was permitted, it had to be done only in ways that confirmed the Church's geocentric model of the universe. Any other theories that contradicted this worldview, such as Copernicus's heliocentric theory, were met with hostility, and the scientists were punished. The Church had rigid views, and for that it needed a standard text. Therefore, all other texts that did not conform with the standardized version were destroyed. Galileo's support for the heliocentric model was met with lots of criticism from the religious community. His open advocacy for the view that Earth revolves around the sun led to his infamous trial in 1633, where he was forced to recant his views under threat of punishment. Betty asserts that despite all this censorship by the Church, we somehow always had the knowledge of us being the ultimate creators of our destiny. This important piece of knowledge was lingering somewhere in the collective human psyche, and as more and more people woke up to the truth, this idea became easier for all to grasp. It's as if you are in a dark room with only a torchlight in your hands. You can only see what is being momentarily illuminated by the torch, nothing else. The room is much more vast and spacious and has more stuff than you can currently see, but it exists beyond your awareness. That is how so many secrets of the universe are present in our collective psyche. Each one of us has access to this reservoir of information, but to access it, our awareness needs to expand. But in today's information-driven economy, more and more people are waking up to the truth because information is more readily available, and questioning the already established doctrine is no longer a serious crime. In fact, the traditional authorities that once dictated what was considered truth, whether religious institutions, governments, or mainstream media, are no longer the sole gatekeepers of knowledge. Recent discoveries in quantum physics have also played an important role in expanding our consciousness. Once it was free from the influence of the church, science finally started studying the non-physical phenomenon. And as the great inventor Nikola Tesla had rightly pointed out, the day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence. Quantum physics now tells us about the presence of a quantum field where everything exists in the form of energy. In spiritual terms, it can be called infinite consciousness or God's energy. Every particle, wave, and vibration that we observe as reality originates from this field, where the distinction between matter and energy blurs into one unified essence.
We are all divine. We are that cosmic consciousness, and we are immortal, and we are creators.
Also, in this infinite consciousness, everything exists as a mere potential, and because we are creators, we have been naturally given the power to choose a potential from this field and bring it into physical reality. That is the quantum law of creation. So the next logical question is, how does a potential become a physical manifestation through this divine law? Our inner world of thought, feeling, and emotions gives rise to our outer world of material form. It's like a mirror. Whatever is put into it on the inside, the mirror projects onto the big screen of our life as our reality. The subconscious mind is a fertile ground that grows and replicates whatever is put into its soil. If we sow positive thoughts and elevated emotions, we will discover a life of infinite joy and abundance. But if the seeds sown are of jealousy, hatred, or even helplessness, the subconscious will return those to us by making life even more miserable. Most people cling to their current reality because they do not know if a transformation or even a meaningful change is possible. Not only are they unsure of their own powers, but they are even doubtful of the law of quantum creation that governs every aspect of our world. This is because of the subconscious programming we receive from the very start of our journey of life. The truth, however, is that each one of us is capable of writing a new life story for ourselves, no matter where we are or how stuck we feel in the moment, through our improved thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. As Neville Goddard said, "Stop trying to change the world, since it is only the mirror. Man's attempt to change the world by force is as fruitless as breaking a mirror in the hope of changing his face. Leave the mirror and change your face. Leave the world alone and change your conceptions of yourself. The reflection then will be satisfactory." This is the message that Jesus, along with countless ancient spiritual masters, had been trying to impart to us all along. It is a message that transcends time, culture, and religion, and speaks directly to the core of humanity about its latent powers.
They destroyed all the images of the feminine, and the feminine is symbolic of the heart, of the symbolic brain, of feeling and love and birth and death. She's symbolic of the subtle world, the spirit world. Got rid of that.
The ancient forbidden texts also talk about the feminine, which has been cleverly taken out of the official versions. The whole is made up of both the feminine and the masculine. Both are opposing yet complementary forces. While the feminine has inherent qualities like intuition, nurturing, receptivity, and emotional depth, the masculine embodies attributes such as action, logic, assertiveness, and structure. So, when both these energies are honored and allowed to flow together in their natural rhythm, the result is a unified, cohesive whole, a state of inner peace, creativity, and alignment with the greater fabric of existence. One cannot exist without the other, and the whole attains its completeness only when both the opposing forces are in a harmonious balance. But as the regulations of the Church became stricter, female figures and divine feminine aspects were stripped away or reinterpreted in ways that reinforced male dominance. This was done to portray men as the ultimate authority and women as subservient to the man. In altered versions of the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament, God was shown as male, and so were the disciples, prophets, and saints. The Church wanted to concentrate power in the hands of a single God who was all-powerful. The rationale was to make God a strong character who is capable of punishing people who do not follow the teachings. However, it has been observed that texts that were excluded from the official religious canons posited a very different kind of narrative, one where the feminine is not relegated or hidden, but is instead honored, revered, and essential. In the Gnostic texts of Nag Hammadi library, the female is seen as a force of wisdom. She is the shadow of the male, an equal and balancing power. The feminine energy represents the subtle body, the gentle and nourishing part of the whole. But as monotheistic religions began to dominate, they often emphasized the supremacy of one male god and rejected the multiplicity of deities, many of whom were feminine. So, as we wrap up today's journey, it is vital to remember that ancient spiritual traditions advise us on the path of going inward and exploring the universe within. Meditation and visualization are just some of the practices that can help us shed layers of ego and become aligned with the ultimate purpose of our soul. You are God in human form, and you are capable of creating a life of miracles for yourself. Till this very moment, dogma and social conditioning might have kept you chained, but after watching this video, you are free to go your own way. So which path will you choose? The one you have been following all along, or the path being a mystic, a seeker of truth like Jesus?